All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is Wednesday, May 14th. We are here for another episode of A Renewed Hope in Digital Assets. I'm Heather Lee Flannery. I'm your friendly host and also the co-founder and chief executive officer at AI Mind Systems Foundation. I'm really excited about the conversation that we have today between myself and my esteemed colleague at AI Mind Systems Foundation, Stacey Ferris. A little bit about what we're going to dig into today. We're going to be talking about new opportunities to defend against crypto fraud. And we have a range of exciting implications to unpack, and we're hoping that all of you are inspired by our vision. So with that, a part of my background is very deep in confidential AI, privacy preserving AI, and guardrails for AI coming from the constellation of technologies that we collectively refer to as Web3 and blockchain. Uh, those of you familiar with us know we're working on something called Wisdom Protocol, and we're working on models that facilitate individual people to have truly self-sovereign AI that can play many different roles in their life, but specifically can operate without any conflict of interest with individual people on completely private and personal data without exposing it, et cetera, et cetera. So in this interaction, we're going to be unpacking the implications of that for the person in protection, prevention, potentially remediation of crypto-related fraud. So with that, I'm excited to introduce my colleague, Stacey Ferris. Stacey, over to you.
Heather, thanks for putting this together and inviting me to join you today. I am your Chief Financial Officer at AI Mind Systems, which is a wonderful privilege to get to build this company with you. Uh, I am a certified public accountant and a certified fraud examiner. So when it comes to fraud, I know entirely too much. So CPA and a CFE are the traditional certifications for a forensic accountant, and that's what I've spent over a decade doing, either in audit, litigation, or performing fraud investigations for private companies or for individuals. And that encompasses a whole range of activity. I have worked on some crypto fraud investigations, assisting people, also done a little bit of tracing for when somebody is hiding assets or hiding crypto assets and they think nobody's going to know because nobody else understands crypto in this particular case. And then surprise, surprise, there's a forensic accountant who does. So not to like, pat my own back here or anything.
No,
Um,
pat away. Absolutely. Yeah.
so yeah, crypto fraud. Let's jump into it. There's a lot of it.
Yeah. So one of the first things I wanted to surface was this fascinating statistic I came across. And it's that the Internet Crime Complaint Center in 2023, they received 69,000 claims specifically relating to crypto fraud. Now, that was only 10% of the total claims. Only 10% of the total claims were related to crypto fraud. However, 50% of the total losses of all the claims were related to crypto. And that amounted to 5.6 billion in reported losses just in 2023, and that was a 45% increase over 2022. So the dark side of the rapidly expanding adoption of crypto is that we're having a nonlinear acceleration of frauds perpetrated against people who hold crypto. Um, I'd love your perspective on that, including like the trajectory of increase too is really fascinating. Um, what say you about this finding?
Well, first, it's unfortunate and it's sad that people lose money, that they get scammed out of stuff. A lot of that, if I had to guess, I would guess a lot of that is elder fraud. And part of it, I think, is just crypto is attractive because there's opportunities to make an extraordinary amount of money. We still have people who never recovered or who are still only partially recovered from the 2008 recession, and that crash. It's been almost 20 years, but we have a lot of older individuals who they lost a lot in that and have, partially recovered, sort of recovered. Um, so I think there are a lot of older people who are going, oh, this is an opportunity for me to invest and win something, right? Or like basically make back a lot of what I potentially lost. A lot of it comes from, I think, just not totally understanding the nature of how crypto wallets work and what you have to protect. Like think about, for instance, if I have a bank account, like if I was born in 1955, okay, I grew up writing checks, and my bank account, my social security number was printed on my checks at one point, which is crazy to think, right? But if I have a check, my account number is just printed on there along with the routing number. Okay. Now we have the internet comes along and we start doing online payments. And if you want to do an ACH, what do? You just take your bank account number and you just throw it in there. Okay. So then you have crypto that comes along and you have the private key and somebody tells you, "Oh, that's like your account number and I need that in order to make this transfer."
Right. I
And
need
you
both
don't
the routing number
understand.
and the account number,
It's
right?
not just
That's
the
this other
wallet number.
number.
Yeah. Or they tell them like, "Oh, that's like a routing number." Yeah. Um Right. And or they say stuff like or they get scammed out of. I've gotten plenty of these because I have crypto wallets, multiple crypto wallets. So I've gotten plenty of the text messages of one thing that recently kind of like made my eyebrows go up was these text messages saying your Coinbase account has been hacked. Please contact us immediately. Right. Well, I'm trained. So I know I go directly to my Coinbase account and check it. I'm like, everything's fine. you know, Also, there's not a lot in there. So wrong account to hack. But but a lot of people don't understand that it's just like with a bank. A bank is not going to text or call you, okay, and then ask for your account number or your logins, right? But I think a lot of it is still, although for those of us who have been in this space, it just feels so second nature of this is my secret key. This is the these are the this is the what do you call it? The seed phrase. I don't give that away. That's secret. And then we still have to be on top of the education and constant reminding. And I honestly think it probably needs to be to some extent almost in training of some kind. Will we eventually see kind of that level of education rise to a level of society-wide level where people aren't getting so easily scammed on that? Yes, and I think it's more common with the younger generations, that we understand, and especially if you're a crypto native, you understand how to protect it. But I think a lot of this is coming from elder fraud more than anything else.
Yep. And interestingly, the same kind of social engineering activities lead to cybersecurity, a huge proportion of cybersecurity breaches, just as they are integral to perpetrating frauds. Oh, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, now we're looking at things like well, there's things like pig butchering schemes, right? Because
Yes, please explain a pig butchering
has
scheme.
nothing to
That
do with
sounds
bacon.
nothing.
Nothing to do with actual bacon. So pig butchering scheme, if you aren't familiar, pig butchering scheme is when it's like a romance trap, right? It's where you basically a fraudster builds a relationship online through, it could be through a dating site is where they hook somebody. It could be through another website or a forum of some kind, but they basically build this personal relationship with them. It's very personal. It's very intimate. It's usually romantic. And then it's using actually common tactics that have already existed, right, for romance scams.
Yeah.
And they basically hook the person into paying them more and paying them more through various social engineering techniques. It could be either, oh, I want to come travel and see you, or, oh, I'm in trouble and I need help and you love me, so you're going to help me. And I need the money and I'm in a different country and I need the money now. So the easiest way for you to send that is send me crypto. Because then we don't have to pay fees for like the international transfer and all of this stuff. You just have to pay the gas fees or the network fees. Um, which depending on what network you use can still be pretty high. Um,
Yeah.
or it could be or it could be some kind of an investment scheme where it's like, well, I have this opportunity in crypto and so forth. But pig butchering usually refers to something romantic,
Hmm.
and it's a reference to, I believe it comes from a reference to how you would fatten a pig up before you slaughter it. So
Yes.
you feed somebody all of this, I guess, love and affirmation that they want and they're hungry for, in order to then butcher them and steal a huge amount of money from them. And I mean, I think it was, what was it? John, what's his name? He does the HBO special, the news
John,
show.
John Stewart or John Oliver?
Oliver did a whole thing on pig butchering, and it was pretty good. And they talked about how there's these whole almost like factory operations in some places over in Asia, Southeast Asia, where it's just a bank of people just sitting there doing pig butchering schemes.
Yeah, it's like this dystopian interpretation of Charlotte's Web meets Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with massive technological acceleration.
Yeah, and it's about to
Scale.
get a lot worse because we've got these deep fake AIs that are actually pretty stinking good, and that's going to feel real because now it might be, oh, well, can I at least see you on video? Yeah, you can, and it's going to be fake and it's going to be realistic. So we have a major problem with, let's say that, well, we know, I've been seeing all over LinkedIn, oh, look, it generated this fake receipt right here and it looks real. Or I saw a video the other day of where it was entirely a deep fake of somebody taking a flashlight and shining it on their face, but it was all of these famous people and it was showing them basically shining lights on their face to show, oh, I'm a real person, right? But if that can be generated, then that now that's not a test, right? So you basically get to this point of, and I think this is where our conversation is going to head, of you can create all of these different types of fake things. So you have two options, right? It's either, okay, we're just going to do everything in person. Okay. Like, forget computers now. I guess we're just going to go back to the farm and we're just not going to use technology because, you know, like it's so difficult to protect your identity. Or the other option, the other solution, I think a lot of groups, a lot of companies, a lot of entities are working tirelessly, and we are certainly working at how we do this. This is why the backbone of all of our AI systems is blockchain, is to use blockchains in order to create a trusted network and a trusted system where you can validate and verify this agent, this person, this information, this data, this generated video, whatever it is. You can validate that this is real, or you can validate that this comes from an unknown source. Like, it can't be validated.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and unpacking that a little bit further, uh, we are now dealing with not only, you know, fleets of actors in giant call centers, all perpetrating frauds, in that human sense, like you talked about with deep fakes, but also just AI-driven adversarial attacks spanning both security weaknesses and social engineering constructs in a way that, imagine there was some limit to the scope of how many of those frauds could realistically be perpetrated, because there is a human labor capacity barrier. Like, even if you had 1,000 people, that's still a limit, right? There is no limit when those capabilities are moved into exceedingly and continuously improving adversarial AI agents that can be spawned to the billions. And it is a completely different scale. I mean, we're talking about 5.6 billion in reported losses from crypto fraud in 2023. I am afraid to know what it's going to be in 2025.
it's
Uh,
going to be bad, and I'll tell you what else is going to be bad: the increase in theft of traditional from traditional bank accounts and sources, because now it becomes even easier to deep fake out that who you are and get access to your accounts. And that's terrifying, honestly. That is straight up terrifying.
Right.
Right. So because they're like for most of us, it's like well, we do have FDIC protection, but if you have like tens of thousands of people suddenly losing all of their money, that is a really bad problem. And I don't know what the ripple effects would be of that. I don't really want to speculate. I don't know if we have economy level controls in place.
We
I don't
don't.
think we do.
No.
But I think that's an economy crashing type event. And then there's a lot of effort to kind of on a related parallel topic I just wanted to bring up, but there's a lot of effort to demonize crypto. Not only is there this crypto fraud, but like I was watching, I watched the Amazon Prime Video movie the other night called G20, which
I haven't seen that.
was a little ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
But it's one of those
I'll
things
see
that
it eventually then. Yeah.
you're like, what else is there? I mean, I guess I'll watch it, because Amazon shows them. It's like this is like number 2 in the United States. You're like, I guess everybody else is watching it. Why don't I do too? Anyway, so G20 is this movie where the world leaders are having a summit in this hotel, and it gets taken over by terrorists. And the terrorists, what they do is they have all of the leaders. I mean, it perfectly encapsulates, I think, everybody's fears in a scenario that is borderline realistic, right? So, these terrorists, they're Australian white guys, okay? Um, and they take over the hotel. They get all the leaders in one room, and of course, the American president is a black woman, and she escapes with the British Prime Minister and a couple other people. She escapes, and basically, then she turns into this badass who helps basically kill all the terrorists. And
Amazing. I got to
yeah,
see this
like I'm
now.
like,
Okay.
on some level, I'm like, hey, of course I love this movie because America saves the day again. Thank you. you know, American exceptionalism. I'm for it. And so, it's an American movie of like, at the end of the day, everybody needs. Yeah, I always used to laugh because I was like, for a while there in the 2010s, you knew when the movie was financed by China because like some Chinese person would show up and save the day, or like there was some show that was about some movie it was about astronauts in space. I'm totally getting off track here. I'm sorry, but it's about astronauts or something like that, and the Chinese government and the Chinese astronauts were the ones who saved everybody, and all of that. And that was the same time when there was all these scandals about Hollywood being controlled by Chinese influence and stuff like that. So I just laugh it amuses me to watch these movies and see which country is going to be like the country that saves everyone, right? And then that's how you can kind of tell who paid for it, right?
Well, I mean, I
But
think that does bring us back full circle to one can always follow the money and derive all kinds of things from that
well,
longitudinal context of
so the movie, right? The plot of the movie is they take over, they have all these leaders read this script of words so that they can deep fake them. And
aha,
then they use it in order to crack. They basically use it to make these deep fakes where these leaders are saying essentially they don't use the word CBDC, but they describe it where all these leaders are saying we're going to implement a CBDC and then we'll be able to control the world. And basically, then they release these deep fake videos onto the internet. It goes viral, and it forces. And what people start doing is they start pulling their money out of dollars and buying Bitcoin.
yep, that is
And so the
interesting.
criminals have this Bitcoin cold wallet, and it shows on the face of it, it shows the balance of the crypto inside. And at one point, he's like, "Look at this, 150 billion. Like we're making bank off of this. This is great. We're crashing the world economy." And he keeps saying, "We want everyone to get into crypto, right?" Is what the criminal is saying in the movie. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, why do you have to demonize this? I mean, yes, crime does happen. Yes, there are things that we need to do about it. Surprise, that yeah, 10% of financial fraud complaints were about crypto. Well, the other 90% were about fiat.
Right.
So,
Um,
But
You
but
know,
but you do have a point that you know in that statistic that the losses are outsized with crypto.
yes. And I think there's many stories of what we would call crypto whales that have also, whether it's lost private keys, been victims of fraud, or been victims of security breaches across those whole thing, all three of those categories. You've got people that earned a great deal in crypto that have not always been able to hang on to it
Yeah.
for across that spectrum of reasons. I want to dig into when we think about the role of crypto and blockchain as part of a defensive apparatus. So realizing it is part of an offensive apparatus, but it is also critically part of a defense. And in these, you mentioned importantly, trust and governance layers that can do everything from prove an individual's humanity to prove that an AI model is trusted, registered, that a certain device hasn't been compromised, that um, a particular blockchain oracle hasn't been compromised, and the real world data it's feeding in is in fact a legitimate oracle, a correct and valid real world data source, for instance. Um, that is a really important part of the defensive apparatus. But I'd like to talk a little bit now about a next level of defensive apparatus for individual people that we're working to bring about, including, but now going beyond that. Just as we talked about adversarial AIs that can scale to the millions overnight, um, trained and perpetrated by the bad guys, right? Um, of course, law enforcement is working fast and furiously to shut that down. Naturally, that's a huge priority. But right now, every individual human is just absolutely as vulnerable as they could be to those things. I mean, they've got voice prints that are easy to fake. There's so much increasing power and then the ability to deploy it at enormous, enormous scale. We have the potential to create defensive AI models that can filter, warn, notify, and potentially even be part of remediating frauds that have occurred. I'd love to get your thought on if you are imagining a consumer, an individual person being outfitted with defensive AI that could protect them from being a victim of a crypto fraud or any financial fraud, really. What are some of the things you would think of first that would be possible through that approach? Like imagine if somebody had you on their shoulder, able to say, don't click that link. Wait a minute, we need to do a verification check on that human. Hold on, we don't know where that message came from. All of those kinds of things. How could that look in a part of a fraud prevention infrastructure for the person?
It's either something that comes with, say, the operating system, like I have my Microsoft computer and I have my AI agent that works here. It's almost like a virus system that you can talk to and interact with if it's at the personal level. I mean, yes, we need, and that's what I think, Google, Microsoft, Amazon are working on is building those defensive networks of AI enabled agents that are able to scan the system and identify threats and mitigate them before they have a chance to, really um, infiltrate. But I think that's something that at a company level, any company that has a web presence will probably have to have its own protective layer of AI enabled monitoring and alerts. If you're talking about coming down to the individual layer, you're going to have to be aware of the fact that a lot of people will, to be honest with you, they'll disable it. And they're going to disable it because it might feel like a parent. For instance, how many people, myself included, have all of the advanced stuff for Siri to make her or him really great on your phone, but you disable all of the things that it would need because it feels intrusive.
That, that actually brings up what I think is one of the most important points. So in our strategy at AI Mind Systems Foundation, and I'm just going to come up in altitude for a second, and then go back down. We are focused on creating the operating model that can confirm there's no conflict of interest with a given AI with the person. And this, even though there are models that, for example, won't store prompt information and that type of thing, they generally are not able to use all personal data in order to do what they could otherwise do. So in this concept of beginning with self-sovereign identity, moving to self-sovereign data as the foundation to facilitating truly self-sovereign AI and our own personal digital twins, which are not deep fakes of ourselves, but are in fact the authorized, registered, empowered digital equivalencies that we can put in motion with the same kind of scalability of individual people in their ability to reach into a digital environment as the bad actors can do with their nefarious agents that can scale to an enormous extent. So the consumer protection approach that we're taking will have these different kinds of protective and defensive models, but paired with models that are also helping the individual person solve various problems or meet various goals that they've set out for themselves. A lot of those problems, a lot of those goals, those are the same nuanced contexts that perpetrators of fraud discover about an individual in order to manipulate them, in order to exploit the knowledge of some detail or some set of details in their lives. So
Yeah, I think it's a combination of not only having like the personal AI agent that you work with kind of on a one-to-one basis, which is to some extent a twin of you, digital twin of you, that operates for you in that space, but also that you have that almost like a community layer because we're stronger as a community. And so being able to have that I'm gonna just call it an AI agent, right? My personal agent that knows all of maybe my personal information, has access to where I've made NFTs of my personal health data or other personal information, has access to that, but also can go and work with the community, that kind of mesh layer of all of these defensive AIs, and is able to talk to them without giving away my personal information, but because they're part of the community, right? So it's like creating that digital community, that digital town square where everybody can come together, say, all right, here's the threats we're facing. Do we have any attack surfaces here that these bad actors could get through? So this is really talking about really upscaling our cybersecurity efforts, really integrating not just traditional cybersecurity, but AI agents and their abilities. And I think that because these agents are so smart and so fast, it probably rapidly hyperscales out of the realm of being able to be directly managed by a human. Right. So you've got to know that the AI agents that you've created are part of a trusted network or a trusted web of other agents. Right. One of the big threats and one of the things that we have to design around is how do we ensure that those agents stay cannot be, I guess, manipulated into becoming like how do you say a traitor in the pack, right?
let's say compromise.
Compromising
Compromise.
the network, right?
Compromising the models, the agents themselves.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you have one bad agent, or that's been, manipulated in a way that it now acts in a way that's not good for the whole network or the whole community, right? So that I think that would probably be one of our preeminent threats as we start to build these digital communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So just double clicking a little bit on the technological implementation that we're talking about here. So right now there's massive scaling of adversarial AI focused on perpetrating fraud to a scale that we're afraid to know what the numbers turn out to be. They already increased 45% from 22 to 23. Um, we're talking about outfitting individual people with a defense background. The individual people's agents, self-sovereign agents, each other. For technical people on the line, it would be using the DIDCOM v2 protocol, fully encrypted. And there are a range of very critical security tactics that include Web3 measures, but also far outside of Web3 measures to defend those models at runtime. And while various of them are being trained or fine-tuned or continuously learning, um, we think that this is a much more realistic and viable way to defend against fraud than a focus that is solely on bringing down the bad actors. Of course, we're not law enforcement. Law enforcement has been working those problems for many years. Unfortunately, they have been mounting and getting worse, though. So I think it's reasonable to say that the scale and prevalence of these these perpetrations of fraud exceed our law enforcement's ability to investigate and enforce and justice those bad. They use, every jurisdiction on earth, and they scramble, where everything appears to be coming from, and that greatly compounds the enforcement challenges. By rolling out a brand new generation of personal defense, agent to agent, and then having an agent to agent web of trusted actors that can identify um, new fraud vulnerabilities, including matching to people like me. You talked about elder abuse. There's people who just came into money for one reason or another that are all, people who perpetrate fraud are always on the lookout for those events. Um, that the learning is not only on a continuous learning of a single agent basis, but a collective, massively multi-party learning process that can create a defensive army on behalf of the individual that can match and meet the AI adversarial agents and the human bad actors behind them. Um, I I think
I,
it's
I I mean,
go ahead.
it's such a grand challenge that it's the challenge of the 21st century. If we're going to move into this era of highly computerized AI agents, quantum enabled, all of this stuff, these are all things that we have to think about. And it is almost like each person needs their own little mini army that of AI agents that can act across all the different spaces where they're present, and there's threats, right? So to some extent, I think that I believe the predictions about we're all going to have, say, an AI friend is how it's often phrased. And it's a friend that basically works with you across different platforms. And maybe it's that we'll have multiple agents on different platforms for different purposes. I don't know. In my mind, listening to all of this, I'm like, I wanted to say, you heard it here first, guys. Buy some land, get some gold, bury it in your yard, buy a gun. I don't know. Like,
Okay.
The world is
And
just
and there
the future is
and
a
there may
crazy
be,
place.
patient zero may have just wandered outside the door
Yeah,
and
I
the
mean, we're
zombies are
all
coming. Um,
welcome to the 21st century. Human life, though, I teach at every most people know I teach at Virginia Tech. And when I talk about AI, in fact, I incorporate it into my lessons. And when I talk about AI, my students are often they're Gen Z, they're demoralized. They're just straight up demoralized about AI. And who can blame them, right? So I try to talk to them about like, okay, what's an attitude and approach that we can have that isn't like, okay, just give up now, right? Because your world's going to change so much between now and 2030. And it's a challenge for us in curriculum of like, well, how do we prepare students for that, And what does the future look like? And um, I hope we're successful at AI Mind Systems with building everything that we want to build. I really want us to be very successful because it's something that's needed in the world. And I don't think it's just us. I think that like our single company isn't enough. I think it's a community effort. I think it's multiple companies coming together and saying we have to build out these systems. This is similar to the early stages of the internet. I mean, everybody was getting scammed left and right when the internet first popped up. Okay. Um,
yeah, that's
and things like eBay showed up, and everyone thought it was going to be a giant failure because people are just going to steal your money. Um, and it somehow, yet it worked out. So even though there are what feel like almost insurmountable challenges and risks out there, I have hope that we will figure it out. Yes, there's going to be losses along the way. Um, it's not going to be it's going to be a bumpy road, but we'll get there. And I just think about generally in human history, like, has there ever been a time or era when you had absolute total certainty that all of your physical assets were safe?
yeah. I mean, there's
So there's
those
always a risk of
have
loss, right? And there's so that's why, building these defensive models and these defensive webs is extraordinarily important for us. And I think it's particularly important right now at the outset of AI is beginning to get developed, right? We're starting to have it show up. So we need to be proactive and not reactive. We don't need to wait for massive hacks that steal, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people's assets and data. We've got to be
right.
proactive about building this stuff out now, which is what we're doing with AI mind systems is being proactive about we have to well you've been trying to build this out for and thinking about this and developing these ideas for years now. So we're at the point where we're actually able to act pretty quickly, and I know we've been able to build out a lot of stuff pretty quickly, so progress is going to
Yeah.
happen fast here.
I was going to say you are super busy in CFO and right and over in the engineering department. It's incredible right now. Like what is happening quickly, things moving. A favorite, I like to play chess and I like to find, metaphors for life in chess stratagems and so on. But there's an axiom, in order to win, you must first not lose.
Yeah.
And as we are equally focused on incredible opportunities to impact humanity positively through this convergence of technologies and new business models that really focus on empowering individual people in a way that they are not today. Um, but all of those opportunities, if on the way to the achievement of those opportunities, um, they are victims of fraud. They are victims of security breaches. Those kinds of massive setbacks. No, none of the people we seek to serve can withstand those. That they don't have the economic resilience. They don't have the most people, and just talking about America, most Americans, the majority are living paycheck to paycheck. There aren't large financial reserves. There's not a net. There's no people don't feel safe or secure right now, which is one of the reasons that makes them so vulnerable to parties seeking to perpetrate fraud because of how desperately a certain, whether it's an emotional need or a financial need, the needs are very strong. Um, we really feel like as we're pursuing those opportunities, every step of the way, we have to be out ahead of the risk mitigations and not take the um, move fast, break things approach where that's all right. We can allow a lot of harms to occur. We can allow a lot of losses to occur. That's all a mess that we will clean up in the background after we have had some kind of massive extractive economic shift. Um, in our model, in our approach, we have to roll out the defenses just ahead of when we're rolling out the opportunity creation capabilities. And I think there's a lot of organizations in the responsible AI field of all different types that agree with us about this philosophy. And I couldn't agree more with what you had to say, Stacy, that it's about an ecosystem and a community, open, partner driven, um, you know, many organizations thriving together. Um, from a council's perspective, there really aren't many organizations that win in any way when frauds are perpetrated. Nobody wins. No one wins. It's a perfect example of a pre-competitive foundation that the AI field should be willing to come together around. Um, and the blockchain community and the Web3 community has so much value to add in how do we trust, control, monitor everything about the actions of any agent that we want to claim to trust,
Mhm.
from how it was trained to how it's operated to everything, everything about it. Um,
Well, the good news is that it's not like we don't have a solution for this. The good news is that this AI capability stuff is uh, coming into the mainstream a decade after blockchain hit
Mainstream.
the ground. Like, how screwed would we be if Bitcoin had just debuted last year?
Yeah,
We'd be so screwed. But we've had a year of developing all of these security systems around how blockchain operates, how to improve the security around smart contracts. So I think we're in a good position. It just takes proactive people with a proactive mindset, like the ones we have with AI mind systems, like you, like Patrick, like Pete, um, to just get building. The tools are there.
yeah.
The tools are there. The tools exist. The systems exist. Um, it's simply about building it. And with AI like Anthropic AI assistance on coding and stuff like that, I mean, it's not going to be difficult. It's not the insurmountable, impossible challenge that it might have been, say, a decade ago.
Absolutely. I mean, all of the labor dynamics in every dimension are shifting so quickly. And these same tools that we need to be defended against, they can be used for good and they can be used for evil. And like all technology, it's neutral. It is neither good nor evil. It's the parties that bring it to bear and operate it and are accountable for its specific outcomes. The human beings behind these things are the accountable ones. Um, something that we've got about 15 minutes left, and if we do have questions from the audience for Stacy and I or I, please feel free to put them, if you're on Zoom, put them in the Q&A dialog box in Zoom, and we'll do our best to address them. But there's another angle to take all of this that is great to have this conversation with you, Stacy, which is how does this all get paid for? The economic dimensions of supporting all of this all that we described, super high potential, very clearly important, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no analogous business model that you can just point to right off the bat and say, that's just a perfect fit for that model. Um, One of the most important developments in agent to agent communications and this agent mesh collective to individual scaling pieces are that um, we now have the ability to assign Web3 decentralized identity to every model that we're talking about, every agent. And that means they have a wallet. And that means that they can also be economic actors in an automated fashion
Hmm.
that can move much faster than traditional commerce can move. And when I say much faster, I'm talking about at a scale of speed that boggles would boggle a natural intelligence like any of us. Essentially, what you see in high-speed trading that has been around for a long time, brought
Hmm.
to every dimension of
That's
commerce.
exactly what I was thinking about was high speed trading, AI agents out there trading. It's almost like just making that basically community wide, so society wide. And I'm hoping that like go back to the crypto fraud issue, right? The FBI's virtual assets unit.
Mhm.
A lot of those frauds are small dollar and they're too small to for a prosecutor to take them up, or they're crypto frauds that involve small. And when I say small dollars, okay, I think the threshold for most cases is if you have had less than $500,000 stolen from you, they may not fully investigate it, or they may not be able to get a prosecutor to take the case. So, you know, if I lost $200,000, I would be devastated,
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
devastated. And for most people, I mean, you're like, well, there goes my retirement that I built nest egg that I was building, like I'm screwed now. Um, so I'm really hoping that the evolution of these AI agents will mean that we can launch more investigations, more fraud investigations, because we'll have the assistance of an AI agent that can actually do the investigation piece. Because right now, crypto tracing, like it's advanced, and there's companies out there that mostly work with law enforcement to do the tracing, but it is time intensive and it's time consuming. And there's a huge, as we've seen, a huge number of cases, and they all require lots of time. And for a lot of fraud victims, that means you could wait years and maybe you'll get some piece of it back, right?
Right.
Maybe not, right? So I'm really hoping that what this AI agent revolution will mean is that we're able, like, so I'm trying to help launch a victims of fraud program, assistance for victims of fraud program, where we use basically people who can't afford forensic accounting or law enforcement that doesn't have the expertise, and we allow students to have hands-on experience with it. And I'm really hoping that we're able to use AI agents in order to do more fraud investigation and follow up on these cases, especially small dollar cases like, if you lost $50,000. They say it's small dollar. You're like, well, it's $50,000. It's a heck of a lot of money to me, right?
No, and we will absolutely be able to do that. That is it's an incredibly important scenario. Um, we do so this idea of just and then I'm going to open it to questions. Uh, this idea that first of all, at AI Mind Systems Foundation, we're focusing on solutions for health, prosperity, and privacy for individual people. Those are unified goals, not separate tracks for us. And when I just want to emphasize, we're not talking about healthcare specifically on this event, but I want to emphasize that social, environmental, occupational determinants of health are enormously impactful. People's prosperity and sense of financial security, their housing security, their food security. the degree to which they might be experiencing major volatility in the labor force. All of these things are huge factors to the health and well-being of a population. And um, being able to defend what prosperity a person has achieved as as we proceed down this path is so important, and it's very interconnected. Their mental health status is interconnected.
Oh,
Imagine
deeply.
the triggering of anxiety, depression, potentially suicidality that comes with an experience of feeling that you have lost everything, or you
Hmm.
could no longer provide for your
Hmm.
family,
Yeah.
or those kinds of activities. So I just wanted to bring this up in altitude to look at the whole picture, where the person-centered apparatus that we're talking about really isn't, it's not 500 different point solutions. It's the ability to actually realize the authentic truth of a holistic person-centered approach. Um, so opening it, so in that sense, all of these agents, they have to be paid for, and the multi-token crypto economic systems that now also can include agent-specific tokenomics, that align the incentives of many different groups. Um, these are very, very interesting and frankly extremely new possibilities. I mean, these are possibilities that are literally 6 months old. I mean, it's extraordinary in its potential. And I'm talking about agents with wallets and DIDs, and the ability to engage in massively multi-party uh, Web3 ecosystems for good, to fight the bad guys. Um, so, any last remarks before we go to questions, Stacy?
Like let's just bring it up even further. I think about the I was looking up the exact name of it here, the Strauss-Howe generational theory. Have you heard this of the turnings? Like the cycles, the 20-year cycle, we move in an 80-year cycle with 4 turnings in each one. And
Please proceed.
they're called what is it? The 4 turnings are, I wanted to make sure I got this right here. We've got the high, the awakening, the unraveling, and the crisis. And most agree that right now we're in a crisis turning, and what follows a crisis turning is the high. So we're at the kind of like the tail end of the crisis turning. The high is a golden age.
Well, thank you for bringing that full circle
So
to a renewed hope.
there are a lot of reasons for optimism, right? Um, we're going through the crisis period. And the answer to a lot of the crises that we faced in the 20th century have been, we have the internet to connect people. We have crypto and blockchain for the monetary problems that were faced, right?
Trust.
Trust and trust issues that we've encountered with the internet and just with society in general. I mean, it's not like pre-internet, everything was like hunky dory and everybody was happy. Um, so, and then we've got AI now that's coming along, and it presents both this tremendous opportunity and tremendous risks as well. But I think that I genuinely believe that between now and 2030, we've got about a 5-year period where if we diligently put our heads down and work towards building these protective meshes and networks of AI enabled net communities, and I don't know what the term is that we're going to use for it right now. Like that might be, we might call it a mesh, we might call it the community, the network, whatever it is, the bubble that keeps you safe. Okay, when you're in that digital space, then it's entirely plausible and quite possible that by 2030 we enter a golden age. Either that or we just blow up all the servers and the golden age is everybody goes and farms again. Sorry.
All right. Wait, thank you for that, Stacy. Let's we've got a great idea from a member of the audience. I don't know how to pronounce the name, Istiak.
Yeah,
Istiak?
yeah.
Istiak. So they're saying that how could we use blockchain in code assurance effectively? Like right now, we routinely do pen testing and code audits and code review, and I think it's not quite as transparent as we would like to be on the level of security of various Web3 code all over the place. But the idea she brought forward is, um, can we make those processes consensus driven and more where many contributors are participating in a code review, and only after a certain threshold is met, a certain consensus level has met, does a particular piece of code obtain some trust symbol or able to be certified in standard X, for example. Um, I think that is I think that's a great idea, not only on, actually Web3 related code directly, but in model training, et cetera. Um, so those systems of transparency and governance can in part facilitate that. I think that's a terrific idea. What do you think, Stacy?
I think it's terrific idea, especially with the evolution of these AI systems that can write their own code, that can self code, that can self program, build their own stuff. If we're building networks of trust across all of these AI systems, then yeah, there needs to be some kind of a control there where the community knows what this agent has built and agrees that we all like this and therefore we're open to implementing this or integrating it into the system. It can't just be, and that's how you control against bad actors too, right? Of somebody just injecting some kind of malicious code into the system through a, a compromised agent, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Um, there's one other comment I would, and so thank you for that great idea and question. That's a that's a terrific addition into an overall framework. Um, we had one other question about proof of identity, which I would include being able to prove the identity of trusted devices, specific models, humans in all their roles and capacities, um, and also, uh, well, the question is about transferability of identity, of proof of identity. And that I think implicates like a cross-chain, you know, cross-chain, cross-domain, cross-context. Just a very quick answer on that front. From our perspective, we're very, very focused on streamlining the bridges between Web 2 and Web 3 systems of identity and identification processes. And we don't see the Web 3 as replacing, but adding over and greatly enhancing those things. And it's not just Web3 primitives and their use, but there are additional requirements that need to be met that come down in our philosophy back to more self-sovereignty and more individual governance over what can be conceived of as a personal identity graph. So if you're familiar with knowledge graphs, then you can infer what an identity graph is. And it's effectively a relationship map of people, places, things to an individual, all of which can receive confirmed identities that are chain agnostic and use multiple cryptographic methods and bridge into Web 2 auth processes as well. So I hope that's somewhat helpful. And we are now at time. Stacy, this has been a really fun conversation and funny in some cases and hope generating, which is part of our mission here in the Renewed Hope series. So, any last remarks? I'll give you the last word and then I'll close it out.
Thank you, Heather, for letting me join you and just riff. You know, some people are afraid to give me an open mic, but You never quite know what I'm going to say. I never quite know what I'm going to say, but it's a good conversation to have about, we started talking about something that's very disheartening, was very negative, and it's like, so what is, what's the solution, right? And like I was saying at the beginning, the solution is, some people, if you react in fear, right, the solution is, well, what do I do? Do I just become a Luddite and withdraw from all digital stuff? Is that the answer? And for some people, that is, right? That's how they handle it. The vast majority of the world, we're not going to do that. So we're going to be using computers in these systems. And that means that those of us who have the skill set and the wherewithal to start building, if we aren't already building, need to be doing it now and need to be thinking about this. In terms of people saying, like, what are the opportunities when AI is taking over jobs and so forth? Being a visionary in the architecture of the future, that's a great job. If you've got a vision for the future of, like, how do we build this, like, this this golden age where we have AI systems, we have all of this advanced technology, and it's safe. It's safe for your grandmother who still forgets to plug in the toaster sometimes,
Yeah.
and doesn't really know what her private key is, but it's safe for her. Even if she does accidentally do something, she makes a human error that would compromise her, there's protections built in, there's agents built in that are looking out for her. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And previous generations, if you want, for example, a car to go faster, you want to move from a Model T up to, up the line of automotive, it's safety systems, it's tighter suspension, it's better braking that actually enables the speed and the progress. And so sometimes there's a reaction to our thinking that all we're trying to do is put brakes on things and we're opposed to the progress of AI. And nothing could be further from the truth. We actually believe that those will be the breakout enablers for scaling of massive value in ways that are truly safe. Just
Mm-hmm.
just like Stacy was mentioning, we did get one more technical question, and I'm just going to add a quick comment here. This is on that question of transfer of identity. So if you are thinking about like Google's agent-to-agent protocol or uh, um, related, the thing is, you have to build another layer and interface the blockchain layer with the entire model training and execution framework. It won't automatically happen. We're working very intensively on that. But it is, you could think of it as a point-to-point interface across a very broad workflow. Um, and we can't go into more detail than that right now, but Stacy, thank you for sharing your vision and your passion for our work and for fraud prevention and remediation. And thank you all for attending. We are here the second Wednesday of every month, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Thanks for joining. And this has been a renewed hope in digital assets. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.